Hello the internet, my name is Dean and welcome to my Ruby on Rails tutorial series. I decided to make this series because a lot of the Rails content that you'll find online is designated towards previous versions of Rails, such as Rails 3 or Rails 4. So I thought that I would contribute and give back to the community that helped me learn by doing an updated series for Rails 5. In this first episode, we're going to start with a basic blog, and we're going to cover creating all of the create, show, edit functionality from scratch rather than using the Scaffold generator, because it's important to understand how this stuff works if you want to create your own content that goes beyond a simple blog post. So we're going to start by making a new Rails application. Rails new, and I'll just call this tutorial 1 and hit enter. And because I'm running this in Windows on the bash, occasionally these commands take a little bit. If you're running on a better operating system, this probably won't take as long. So you can see here it's just generating a bunch of the files that it usually creates on startup. And now it's running the bundler command, which will install all of our dependencies, which is essentially the gems or the plugins that allow the application to run. Okay, and if you want to clear your terminal, you can just hit Control and L. So now we're going to cd into that by doing cd tutorial 1. And now we're going to do our sanity check. I like to do this at the start of every new Rails application just to make sure it works. And we do this by just typing Rails S, which starts the server. I'm pretty sure you can also type Rails server, but I've only ever typed Rails S. And then as soon as this decides to work, we can go to localhost port 3000. Of course, if your console does get stuck, you can use the arrow keys to sometimes force an update. So if we do this, we should see that we are writing Ruby on Rails. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Sublime Text. And I'm going, I already have Sublime Text open. I'm just going to open this specific tutorial folder. So this is the folder that that the Rails project is in. So we're going to open this, and we'll move it over here, and we'll keep the window over here. So you'll see it generated a couple folders. The main ones we're going to focus on today are the app folder and the config folder, which has our routes. So the first thing we want to do is create the controller for our posts. So we're going to go back to our terminal, and I'll make this bigger just in case. Now you can press Control-C to close this, which it told you to do up here. So you close it, hit Control-L, and now we're going to run our first Rails generator. So what we're going to do is Rails G controller, and we'll just call this post. Well, I guess we'll call it posts. So normally what you can do is you can add your actions in here, like an index page and a show page and all that. But we're going to go as bare bones as possible just so that you can see what it's like creating this stuff from scratch. We could also just come over here and create the controller ourselves, but this just feels like it's at least introducing some of the Rails syntax to you. Once this is created, assuming this decides to run, we can come over to the post controller and zoom out a little bit. So what we do in here is we just define, essentially, they're called actions, but really all we're doing is we're defining pages that we can go to and some additional functionality that we don't necessarily have to create a page for. So we'll just start off with an index page. So we do def index and then end. So now if we go to our terminal, we can do Rails routes and take a look at what the routes look like right now, which should be fairly empty. Really riding the struggle bus today. Please add some routes in config/routes.rb. So we will go to config, routes, and then we'll create our first route. So for this, all we're going to do is we're going to create a route for the index action. So for this, we'll do get posts. Oops, that's not how you spell posts. Get posts to posts and then index. And all this is it's saying get posts to the post controller and then the index action. So it goes controller, pound or hash, index. Now, if we do that and then we run Rails routes, assuming you save this file, you should see that it now has a route to the index action, which probably doesn't mean anything to a beginner, but if we run the server once this is done, you'll be able to see that this did in fact do something. So now it's telling us we have one route, posts at the post index. So let's run the server. And while this is starting, I'll just move this over here for now. We can type /posts. And then once the server starts up completely and we go here, we should get an error, which we did. It's telling us the post controller index action is missing a template for this request. And all that means is we don't have an HTML page for it to show us. So if we go into our views folder, we go to posts, you can see that there's nothing in this folder yet. So let's create a new file, hit Control S to save it, and we'll just call this index.html.erb. And inside of this, well, I guess we can refresh this first so you can see that that worked. That'll get rid of our error, but there won't be anything here yet. So what we need to do is add some text. So we'll just do some text, and now you'll see that's on the page. You can, of course, do an h1 tag and just say, I don't know, posts page. And there you go. So now that we have this post page, we should probably add some content. So to do this, the first thing we need to do is we need to generate the model. And what the model is it's the part of the application that interacts with the database. So this is the thing that keeps all your data, so when you stop the server and start it back up, you can get the information back. So we're going to kill the server, and now we're going to run a different generator. So last time we ran Rails G controller, but this time we're going to run Rails G model. We're going to call it post. And generally, the way you do this is you add your attributes. So like, let's say our post needs a title, and we want the title to be a string, and we want a body, and we want the body to be some text. So that's one way to do this. The other way is, like, let's say you only did the title. So let's say you only did title string, and you forgot to do the body. We're going to do that right now. We'll run the migration. And if we come over to our DB folder and migrate, you can see the migration file. So what this is saying is create the post table and then give it the title. So what you could do right now, because we haven't run the migration yet, is you could just say t.text body. But we don't want to do that. We want to accidentally run this migration so that you understand what to do if you accidentally run it and then you want to change it later. So if we do Rails DB migrate, that'll run this migration. It'll create the stuff in the database for us. Now the trick is you can't run this specific migration twice on the same database. So at this point, if we were now to add the t.text for the body, we couldn't, it wouldn't be added to the database. Like, we could run the migration again and nothing would happen. So if I do t.text body and I run the migration again, nothing will happen. And the reason for that is You don't want to edit like an old migration and make it depend on a new one, and then you'll run into like circular references. That's never a good idea. So instead what you have to do is you have to create a migration to change the database. So we'll clear this, and last time we ran the Rails G model. This time we're going to run Rails G migration, and we're going to say add body. So it's add underscore body underscore to underscore posts. And by doing this, it'll automatically detect which table we're changing. So it'll know go to the post table. Even if you have multiple, it just knows. It's really smart. So we'll do body text, and then we'll hit enter. And this will create another migration called add body to posts. And if we open that, it says add column to the posts, body text. So now if we do Rails DB migrate, it'll actually run that migration. And this is important because a lot of times you'll want to add stuff later on. And, you know, the first time you go through this, you'll think to yourself, well, how do I add stuff? It's not working. And then you end up spending, 30 minutes on Google trying to figure out how to change a migration. When in reality, you just have a different generator for that. So now that that's done, and that's probably a lot of stuff that doesn't mean anything to you yet, but that's okay. What we can do now is we can create a new post model, or a new post page, basically. So for this, we will go to the index, and we'll create some Ruby tag, or some Ruby code, to do a link to a new post page. So we do the open bracket % equals, and then we do link underscore to, and then the name of the link. So you could put anything here, like link to, new post, or just new, or create, or something like that. We'll just say new post. And then you do a comma, and then you do new post path. So what this does is it, well, I guess we don't. Let's just leave it like this for right now. The equal sign causes whatever's in here to be rendered out. So if I just do link to, like, I don't know, post new path, we'll do it like this. And we go to the page, it'll try to put this link in, oops, forgot to start the server. Rails S. It'll try to put this link into the page in the same way that like a HTML link would look like this, like /post/new. And then the word in here is just new post. So this is essentially what it'll generate, but it's doing it with Ruby code instead. So if we come to here and we just press enter, it will yell at us because we don't have any of this stuff created yet. Undefined local variable or method, blah, 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 blah. So let's start by doing a new action. So we'll do def new end, and we're actually going to take all of this and reduce the tab width to 2 because this is driving me nuts. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to say, we're going to create a variable. We're going to call it @post, and then we're going to say equals new. All right, we're going to, normally it would be new post like that in any other language, but because we're working with Rails, we're going to do capital P post dot new. And if we check in, I guess we can just check right here. If you do post dot new, it just creates an empty post object. So this is the stuff that'll get saved to the database. So by doing this, we now have our new action. We can try going back to the index, but it'll still yell at us. And the reason for that is we don't have a route yet. So what we have to do is we have to say, if you want to go to /post/new, you need to do a get post/new. And we're going to do to posts new. Oops. New. So now if we run this again, it's going to say, oh, we're missing a template. But if we try to go to just /post, this will at least work. So now you can see that our link is working, and if we press F12 and we just click on the link, you can see that it just generated the A tag that you would find in regular HTML. In fact, if you wanted to, you could even just put this in here and it would have the same effect. And it would still send us there. But of course, because you're working in Rails, it's always better to have the dynamic links rather than hard coding them like that. So we have this. We need to actually make this go somewhere. So we're getting the missing template error again, which if you have a missing template error, that usually means that you don't have that HTML file yet. So we'll hit new file, and this is on the post folder again. We'll do Control S to save, and we'll do new.html.erb. Okay, so now we have the new. We can come in here and we can say h1, create new post, and we'll close that off, and we'll refresh, and it takes us to the create new post. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add a gem, and we're just doing this to make our lives a little bit easier, and also to show off just adding gems. So we'll go to our gem file, and we'll say gem, open quotes, simple underscore form. Now we'll go back to our server, or our terminal. We'll close this, or clear this, and we'll say bundle install. And this will run the bundler again, and it will install all of the dependencies for the new gems that we're adding. So if I do something like bundle list, it'll sort this alphabetically, and we can see that simple form is now included here, which is what we typed over here. So what simple form does is it just it makes the process for making this like create post form a lot simpler, for lack of a better term. But first, we need to actually generate it. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. What we're going to do is we're actually going to search, we're going to go to Google, and we're going to search simple form gem. So whenever you want to install something, you usually want to go to Google, search for the gem, and then you want to go to the GitHub page, because people are kind enough to make installation instructions. So here you can see we added the gem, we ran bundle install, and now we have to run their custom generator. So in the same way that the other one that we ran Rails G controller or Rails G migration or model, here we're going to do Rails G simple form. And again, you can type generate or just G. We're just going to type G and then we're going to do simple underscore form colon install. And that will run the installer for it. So now that we have that, we haven't really changed much, but we can start our server up again, and we can start creating this form. So what we're going to do is we're going to open some Ruby code, and we're going to close it, and then we'll do okay, we'll open up the server or the web page. We can close this page now. Make sure this is still working. It is. So what we're going to do is we're going to type simple underscore form underscore 4 at post. And this at post is coming from the post controller new action. So we're just grabbing this variable because we're on the new page, which means we're in the new action, which means we have access to this at post variable. So we're doing simple form 4 at post, and then we're going to say do, and you can name this whatever you want. You can name it post, or the general convention is to just use the letter F. So we'll just use the letter F, that way that this doesn't get too confusing. So we'll come down here, and because we opened this do statement, we need an end statement at the end. So if I don't have this here, and I save and I refresh, it's going to yell at me and say that it expected keyword end. And all that means is we don't have an end tag right here. Now this end tag does not need the equal sign. It's just an open bracket, percent end, percent close bracket. So if we do that, we now have this, but we don't have any data in here yet, or any like form being created. So what we need to do is we need to create a form for the title and for the body. So we'll do a percent equals f, which is our variable. And right here you can see that it knows don't actually, oh, this is for the general form. Okay. So if you don't have simple form, the way you do this is with f.checkbox or .file field, hidden field, all that. But because we have simple form, all we have to do is do f.input and then the name of the thing. So here we're going to do title. So if we save that and we come over to the new page and we just refresh, we now have a thing to type our title in. Let's also do one for the body. So f.body or f.input colon body. Save that, refresh the page. We now have a text area for the body. And again, this isn't going to be pretty because we're just we're mainly focusing on the functionality and not on the way that it looks in this episode. In further episodes, I'll cover how to style all of this and make it all look a lot better. But for now, it's just important to understand how things work. So now that we have the title and the body, we need a way to submit this. And for that, we do f.submit. And it creates the button create post, which will take us to a create method that we don't have yet. So let's go ahead and give this a title, a body, and we'll hit create post. And it's going to yell at us saying no route matches post / posts. And what that means is in our routes folder that I accidentally closed. So let me open that up. If you're in Sublime, you can hit Control and P to open up this window and just search for whatever you're looking for. Hit enter, or you can just go into config and routes.rb. So what we need is we need a route for our post action. So for this, we'll hit enter, do a new line, and we'll do posts, comma, to posts create. So we now have a route for this, but if we try this again, we go to new post, just enter some dummy data, and we hit create post. The action create could not be found for post controller, which means that we don't have a thing here that says def create. So let's just go ahead and do that real quick. So we'll do def create end, and we'll try again. So we'll go to /posts, we'll hit new, give it some dummy data, and hit create. And what'll happen here is nothing, because we don't have our create method yet. So what we need to do is we need to say, well, let's refresh this first so it stops loading. We need to say at post, because we need to make our new post, equals post.new post params. So generally what you want to do is you want to protect your parameters a little bit. That way the scary people on the internet can't, ruin everything for you and make you have a bad day. So what you do is you come down here and you type private, and then you're going to do def post params. So this is generated with a lot of scaffolds, and it's generally where you go to add parameters that your application is going to use, or that this specific form is going to use. So you do params.require, then you open parentheses, post. So this is requiring the post parameters. So specifically, the parameters that this form submits under, under, it's going to look like post params. Or no, whoops. It's going to be params post. So this is going to be sent across with the post request, and then you're going to grab the information out of here. So you do require post.permit, and then you're going to permit the title, and you're going to permit the body. And then it's just going to populate this new post with the title and the body, which is why you put this inside of the new call. So once that's done, we can try to create a post. We'll do some dummy data, and this is once again going to fail. And the reason this is going to fail is because we're not saving this. We're only doing a new post. We still need to come in here and say if at post.save redirect to at post, and we'll give it a notice that says you created a post. Else the post didn't save, and in that case we're just going to do a render new with an alert that says your post didn't, or your post wasn't created. And we'll hit an end to close off this if statement. So now if we refresh and we type some stuff and we hit create, it will tell us that we couldn't, or that the post URL is undefined. And of course, this is because we don't have a way to show the post. So if we were to change this to just like post path and go back, we'll refresh and we'll enter some more data, and we'll hit create post. It sends us back to the index page, which just has our new button. So where did our post go? Well, if we come over to here, we can see that the SQL ran and it inserted the title and all of that information into the post. And here you can see the parameters with the UTF, the authenticity token, and here's the post parameters with the title and the body and the commit. But it's not showing up on this page, and the reason for that is we need to actually get all of the posts on the index page. And the way to do this is to go to the index action, and we'll create a variable called @posts equals post.all. If we do this and we refresh, you'll see that once again nothing happened. Excuse me? Okay, nothing happened. So the reason why nothing happened is because we have to actually tell the application to render these posts. And we do this by doing open bracket parentheses @posts dot each do, and then we'll name it post. And this is just the name of our temporary variable again. In the same way that this was called f, here we're just calling it post. And because we did a do, we're going to have to end it. So now if we refresh, nothing appears, and that's because we have to do some Ruby code to actually render this on the page. And we'll just do post.title for now so that we can see that this is working. We'll refresh, and there's our title of our post. Okay, but maybe we want to make this a little more readable, so we'll do a p tag, and we'll close the p tag. And we'll fix the indentation, and we'll refresh. So here you can see that it's rendering the first post we made, and I guess the second. I didn't realize that another one saved, but you know, that's fine. Let's actually just make sure. So we'll open some more Ruby tags, and we'll just say @post.id, and we'll do some fancy brackets around it so that we can see at least a difference between the, oh, whoops, I did at post. I'm supposed to only do post.id. That way we can see what's the ID specifically and where the title starts. That way if the title starts with a number, it doesn't get confusing. Okay, so that worked. Let's also do our body. So we'll do another p tag, and we'll close it. And we'll do % equals post.body, and we'll refresh. Okay, so it's giving us our body and our title. That's good. Yep. Let's do one more new post with a real title, a different body, just in case. There we go. Okay, so that's working. Maybe we want to order these in like the order that they were created at. So we'll come back to our controller and we'll just do .order. We'll open some quotes and we'll do created at and DESC. And that just sorts them by descending order that they were created at. Okay, cool. Now, what if we want to create a link to like the actual post? Like, let's say this was just our list of all the posts and we want to go to like the more detailed show page. Well, to do that, we can create a link inside of our post. So we'll come down here and we'll just say the same thing we did before. We'll do link to, and then we'll call it like view, or let's call it show, just to be clear. And we want to show specifically this post. So now if we refresh, we will once again get yelled at. It's telling us that we don't have a post path, and it's asking if we meant post path. Well, no, we didn't, but our problem is we don't have a show action in our routes. So let's create a route and call it, let me just check to make sure that I have this format right. We want to call this posts/:ID, which is going to be specifically a parameter that's passed from this post. So when you call this post, it will automatically pass in the ID, and it'll give you something like /posts/3. So all this is going to do is it's going to replace this :ID with this number 3. So we have that, and we're going to do 2, and we're going to say posts show. Oops, show. So you would think that this would work because it follows the format, but what ends up happening is it still doesn't work. And the reason for that is you have to end the show with one last thing that says as post. And now if you refresh, you have your links. And here you can see in the bottom, it says localhost port 3000/post/3. So if we click on this, we'll be able to see that, oh, right, we don't have the action yet. So again, no action in the post controller called show. So we have to go to posts, and right below index, we'll actually tab this down a bit so we have more room. We'll say def show end. Okay. Post controller is missing a template for this request. Okay. So we have to create a new file, save it, and we'll call this one show.html.erb. And now we'll refresh. Okay. So that worked. So now what we can do is we can, well, we can't really do much because we don't have access to a variable that has this post yet. So what we have to do is come into our def show, and we're going to do at post equals post.find, and then we're going to say params ID. So you can generally find a post specifically by doing like just the number. So let's say you wanted to find the post with an ID of 3. This would work. But here we want to get the post based on the parameter that it's passing. So that if we go to post/1, it takes us to the first, or post/3, it takes us to the third. And for that, you can do this params ID. So if we refresh now, nothing will happen because we don't have any Ruby code. So let's start off with an h1 tag, and we'll just say showing post. We'll refresh. Okay. And below that, we'll say like h3, h3. And then we'll do @post, which is the variable we created in the controller, .title. And then we'll close out the Ruby code. And there's our title. And then we'll do a p tag for the body. And in here, we'll just say @post.body. And we'll refresh. And we have our body rendering. Finally, let's do a link to all posts. And we'll just call posts path. And that's already been created because that's how we've been getting to this /posts. So if I save this and we refresh, we now have our link back, which takes us back to here. So we can view all of our posts and navigate the website. Okay, so that's nice, but what if we want to edit these posts that have these questionable titles and bodies? Well, to do that, we'll create another link to. We'll say link_to edit, and we will say edit post path, and we'll pass it the post. So if we refresh, it'll yell at us saying we don't have this edit post path yet. So we're going to go to routes, and we're going to insert this edit route. We'll do this right above the show page. So we'll do get posts /:id and /edit. So you'll have to specifically go to /posts /3/edit if you want to edit the third post. Okay, and then we'll do comma 2 posts edit, and then we're going to do as edit _post. Okay, so that sets up that route. So now if we refresh, we'll see that we have this route created. We don't have an action yet, which of course means go back to the post controller and create the action. So we'll do def edit end. Okay. And now we're missing a template. So we'll come over to our posts. We'll say new file, save it, edit.html.erb. And we now have our edit page. So this is an important point. We have our edit page, we have our new page. They are both going to have the exact same code in them. So what we could do is we could copy and paste the new Ruby code in here. So we'll just say h1 edit post, and then we'll paste in the Ruby code and undefined model name. Well, that's because our edit doesn't have the @post that the new page did. So let's just do @post equals post.find params. Okay, Slack. @post.params :id. Okay, so here you can see it automatically populates it with the information because it's grabbing the post. That's great, but you'll notice that in a couple locations we're now repeating code. And anyone who's been a programmer for longer than 5 minutes knows that repeating code is bad. Well, it's bad practice. I wouldn't necessarily say it's bad because it will run the same, but I generally don't like doing it. So what you want to do is, for this edit and for this new, is preferably separate this out into a partial. So we'll go to posts and we'll right click, hit new file, And we'll save this, and we'll save this as _form.html.erb. And this underscore tells Rails that this is a partial. And all a partial is it's just a snippet of code that you can render inside of your other pages. So we'll save this, and in our new page, we'll get rid of all of this, and we'll just hit bracket %equals, and we'll say render, and we'll do posts/form. And then we'll close this. So now if we go to our posts and we hit new post, it's exactly the same. Let's open up our edit and let's get rid of this. And we'll do the same thing. We'll just say render posts/form. So now if we go to, we go to /posts and we hit edit on, let's say this one, we have our stuff. And you can see it's already changed this to update post instead of leaving it as create post. So that's pretty neat. But if we change this, so let's just change this and we hit update post, that's not going to work. And the reason for that is we don't have our routes defined yet. So we'll come in here and below our edit, we'll do a patch posts/:id to posts update. So let me just make this a little bit more readable. Okay, so this edit renders specifically the edit view, while this update handles what happens after you hit the update post button. So of course, when we run this, it's not going to work because we don't have an action called update yet. So for that, we're going to come over to our post controller, and below create, we'll say def update end, and we can probably skip watching this not work. So instead what we'll do is we'll do @post equals post.find. Well, we're already calling this twice, so now we'll be calling it a third time. So we probably don't want to do that. So instead what we'll do, below the private, we'll say def, let's call this set post end. And let's just grab this line of code, paste it down here, and up top we'll say before action set post only, and then we'll pass it which actions we want to set a post for, which was the show, the edit, the edit, the new, and the update. Not the new, actually, I lied. So for the show, the edit, and the update. Getting a little bit ahead of myself here. So now we can essentially get rid of this in the show method, the edit method, and we don't need this in the update method. So now we have our @post because we grabbed it right there. So we'll do if @post.update post params, which again we're getting from down here. Then what we want to do is redirect to @post with a notice that says post was successfully updated. And that's not how you spell successfully. Okay. Else, let's actually move this over so we have more room. Else, the post was not successfully updated. So we'll just render edit with an alert that says your post wasn't updated. We'll end that. Okay. One thing I noticed is that on post, we're still redirecting to the post path, but we might want to redirect specifically to the post we just created. So we'll just change that to @post. So now if we refresh the edit page, and we change this and edited post with a meaningful body. And we'll hit update post. And we can now see that we have changed this. And if we go to our post listing, you'll see that the post with an ID of 2 now has a different title and a body. So let's just edit this last one from here. Our first post, we changed the text. Update. And we now have 3 posts that are all readable. So what happens if we want to destroy a post? Well, I'm sure you can already guess what that will require. We'll have to go to our index, create a new link, say link to destroy, or just delete, whatever you want to say here. I'll just stick with destroy so it's clear. And then we'll call our longer link to option. So we're going to do delete post path. We'll pass it the post. We need to specifically call a delete method here, which I won't do to begin with, just so that you can see what happens if you don't have it. So we don't have our post path, so we have to go to routes, of course, which means adding a new route called delete post / ID. And we'll say to posts destroy, and we'll say as delete post. So we have our route now, which means this works, but it doesn't actually do anything yet. Okay, well, that means we have to come into here and we have to create a method to destroy a post. So what does that look like? Well, we're just going to do def destroy end. And now we need a reference to the post, which means writing at post equals, but we already have it from the set post. And instead of like calling set post in here, what we'll do instead is we'll just come up to the top, and after update, we'll add in our destroy method, which means we now have access to the at post. So we'll just call at post.destroy, and then we'll redirect to the post path with a notice that says your post was deleted. And the reason we're doing this is if we call the delete method from inside of our show page, like let's say we add a delete button right here into our show. Let me just grab these two. So let's say we do this and we change this to at post because we have our at post variable in here. We're no longer inside of this each loop, which gives us access to the post without the at symbol. If I do this and then we untab these for sanity's sake. So if we were to destroy it from in here, we wouldn't want to go back to this post that no longer exists because then we'd get an error. We want to go back to the all posts page, which is why we're redirecting right here. Okay, so we now have our route set up. We have our method that will, all that's going to work. So let's just hit destroy. But that didn't work. It's still redirecting us to the post page. Why is that? Well, the reason is you have to change the code a little bit compared to the other ones, and you need to add this little method delete. So it's a little bit convoluted why they do this. The basic idea is you don't want search engines that are scraping your website that'll, they'll click on all your links. You don't want them to accidentally delete all of your posts. So they might go through, click this destroy, this destroy, this destroy, because they're trying to index your site. So this way you can specifically say, use the delete method. So you're basically signing up for the trouble that you're going to get. And you're telling the search engines, don't click this button because they're actively looking for this bit of code. So we'll hit the destroy button, and we're now deleting a post. But it would be nice if there was some kind of confirmation. So for that, we'll do a data, and then we're going to open brace, and then we're going to say confirm, and inside of this is just whatever text you want to say. So we'll say, are you sure you want to delete this post? There's no going back. So now if we refresh and we try to destroy this, we get a nice little pop-up that says, hey, don't do this, or, you know, you better be sure. And then we'll just copy this over to the show. But again, here we're copying code over. So it would be nice if we had some way to, you know, share these links. Well, fortunately, we can do a new file. We can save this, and we'll create another partial, and we'll call this like _shared.html.erb. And we'll just say, or we'll copy this over, paste it in here. We'll save it. And then we'll say %= render. And we want to render our post/shared. Okay, so that's nice. You know, our links are working. But if we come into our index and we want the same thing, so let's actually copy this over because this is the better version. If we do that and we refresh, it didn't work as expected. The reason for this is, of course, % = render post/shared. The reason for this is we're not passing in the @post. We still have to pass in the post from both the index and from the show page. And the way you do that is you just say post = post on the index, and in the shared, or in the show page, you want to do post = @post, which will hopefully work. Oops, /post. So we'll do new post. Say another post. Hey, how's it going? Create post. So now we have our shared links right there. No route action matches, action edit, controller posts, ID nil. So we're not passing in the post as we expected to. Why is this not working? Post. Okay, so let's do this, and in the show page, pass in post, and in here, do this maybe? Okay, so that was the problem. So you don't want to pass in and make this an @post because you're not setting this to be @post, right? Or you're not setting this portion to be @post. You're just saying this is equal to post. So inside of our shared, we don't want an @post. We just want it to be post. So we can save it there. We can save it there. We can refresh. And now we have a complete application. Completed the things. Here's some body text. We've created the posts, and we can do everything that we would expect from a regular Rails application. So that was a lot of work, and as you can see, that was really confusing. So there's got to be a faster way to do this, right? Well, actually there is. It's a lot faster than what we just went through. So let's kill the server, and let's cd out of our Rails directory. So we'll just do cd ... We'll do Rails new, and we'll call this a fast one. So that's going to generate, it's going to run the same stuff that we ran at the beginning, but it's well, this one's going to run a lot faster than the last one did. So after this is done, I'm going to run you through what it's like to create a post with the scaffold. This is a magical generator that you're probably going to use, I mean, most of the time you're working in Rails because, well, anytime you need to do a CRUD application like this, you don't want to go through all of that. There are some people that would, you know, advocate creating the content yourself every time, but honestly, it's too much work. So we're going to do open folder. We'll move up to tut, and we'll just open up the fast one real quick. So we can close our other editor. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to run Rails G scaffold. We're going to call it post. We're going to give it a title, :string, and a body, :text. So this was the generator that we ran at the very start when we did the migration. You know, we created the controller, the model, and we set up the routes for everything and all of those views. Well, if we just hit enter, this will run and this will generate the scaffold. And what this does is it sets up the entire CRUD for you, albeit with some unnecessary stuff in the middle that you'll have to get rid of if you want your application to work right with some, well, like any sort of styling. It's going to have like some crap that gets put into your CSS assets. So like if we go into app, assets, style sheets, you can see there's a scaffolds.css, and this will overwrite a lot of stuff. So generally you want to delete the scaffolds.css stuff. But if we run our Rails DB migrate, actually, let's not do that. Let's try to run the server first, Rails S. That way you can see what happens if you forget to run your migration. Okay, so this is a brand new application. This is completely different than the last one we just did. So assuming the Rails server wants to start, which is always a bit of a coin flip, you're going to see migrations are pending. To resolve this issue, run bin/Rails DB migrate. Okay, so we'll do that real quick. We'll say Rails DB :migrate. That'll run the migration, add the stuff to the database, and then we can run the server again. This is, of course, one of the disadvantages of running the bash on Windows. Now I'll say Rails S to start the server up, and we'll tap the arrow keys just because. I don't know if it actually helps. It definitely seems to cause it to respond sometimes. Okay, and one more. All right, so now if we go to localhost port 3000, you'll see, yay, you're on Rails, so that's nice. Let's go to /post though. Again, this is a completely new application with similar functionality. Let's just say hello world, and let's grab some hipsum. Create post. So you can see this has similar stuff to what we just did, but it's all generated for you. The code's going to look a little different. So if we like go into our controllers, we can see we have a post controller, and we have similar code to what we just did. This is, of course, you know, a bit more optimized, but it's essentially the same thing. We still have our set post, our post params, we have our destroy, our update, create, all that. The one thing you will notice that's different is if you go into routes, it's just calling resources posts. So it's hiding a lot of what we did in the routes file. And the only reason we did it that way is so you could understand how to specifically set it up for certain actions, because that does come up a lot. If we go into views and posts, you can see that we have all of our forms, our show page, you know, the new page, which is rendering the form. And if you go to the form, you can see that it's using just the regular Rails form. You can, of course, change this to be simple form. We didn't install the gem, so this is just using a regular form. But you can see that, you know, with one command in 30 seconds, you have all of that functionality. The good news is, because you did it the long way, you now understand how this works. And that's really the main takeaway from this episode. So I will end the episode here. And, you know, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. I'll also leave a link to the blog version of this video, the blog post associated with it, in the description. That way you can head over to my website and follow the instructions there if you got stuck at one of the commands and you just want to go back and see how I did things. Thanks for watching.